Hi, all, and welcome back to another review for Lady in Red. This book came to me through sheer coincidence because it was suggested as one I might like based on my previous read, so I decided to take a chance on it. And I haven't read an anthology or a series of short stories in a while, so for this review, I'll be sharing Found, an anthology of found footage horror stories edited by Andrew Cull and Gabino Iglesias. The title really just sums up what this book was all about, and somehow I found the only other book that also has a cover that looks like a VHS tape. I'm looking at you, my best friend's exorcism. Reading this book was like watching a series of found footage horror films, obviously, but in writing. The format varies from story to story, some written like diary entries, some written like text messages and emails and Reddit threads, some like interviews, and on and on and on and on. And if you know me, you won't be surprised to hear that I've been known to fall asleep to things like paranormal activity and forensic files. So I had such high hopes for this anthology, and having high hopes for something like this can either be a blessing or a curse. So, with that in mind, let me sum up some of these stories for you. The very first one in the anthology, called 2 Months Too Long, was a perfect way to start, in my opinion. In a series of text messages, we see a woman obsess over a man she's been with for about 2 months. And when she can't catch his ridiculously unambiguous hint, events quickly evolve or devolve into literal insanity. We find out that this psycho is capable of a lot, and I do mean a lot. If you're familiar with the movie Fatal Attraction, this goes way beyond boiling someone's pet rabbit. In another story called Accidents of a Sort, a newly hired accident investigator sees a video of a car crash that leaves him a little too obsessed. There's a bit of a supernatural element to this story, too, but it doesn't really feel that supernatural in the context of the story. Another story called Dear Penny sees a mom reading the diary entries of her teenage daughter. Not a great choice, mom, because she finds out that her daughter is a little different than what she thought she was. This one reminded me a little bit of the show Black Mirror, specifically the episode called Archangel, but jacked up to like 100 by the end. And another story called The Veiled Lady. It's also written in diary entries, but from the perspective of a woman who's just awoken from a 14-month coma, not really remembering her life before the coma. We see her start to regain those memories that she had before the coma, and it concludes with a realization that I absolutely did not see coming. Wild. Now, Clay McLeod Chapman wormed his way into this anthology because, of course, he did. The short story included here, called Spew of News, is actually the original short form version of the book he wrote called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, the one that I reviewed in my last video. I told you this novel would come back to haunt me. But honestly, the short story helped me to appreciate the long form novel a little bit more, but don't get me wrong, I still don't like the novel. But the short story really helped me see where he started and the changes that he made from the short story to the novel. The characters' names are different, and some of the details about the main character are merged with details about his brother. In fact, there's not even a brother in the short story. And the plot itself, by the nature of the form, felt a little bit rushed to me. I don't necessarily think I would feel that way had I read the short story first, but I can't unknow what I know about that novel. Honestly, I really could spend this whole review giving you highlights from the entire anthology because the plot lines were so unique and didn't ever veer into the repetitive. I read the editor's notes at the beginning and they said they received thousands of submissions. And man, would that be my ideal job, reading through a bunch of short stories in the horror genre? So, with that being said, my favorite stories in this anthology were in no particular order: 2 Months Too Long, Junk Pickup, The Veiled Lady, Regular Saint, and Accidents of a Sort. So, I'll go ahead and tell you that my recommendation for this one is devour it, but only if you're into psychological horror. Listen, I'm a tough nut to crack as far as horror and thrillers go because I've just consumed so much in those genres. But there were stories in this anthology that actually gave me the creeps. I always read before I go to bed, and there was one night where I had to watch funny YouTube videos before I could even put my head on that pillow. I've never read an anthology like this, and I loved it. There was one story I didn't particularly care for called The Paul, but the rest range from, at minimum, entertaining to ridiculously brilliant. I definitely recommend this for people who dig the creepy and the horrifying. So thanks as always for supporting me. Pick this one up if you're so inclined. Now, go read something.